Is this my soulmate, my kingdom spouse, or my twin flame? Yeah, you saw that title and you clicked, but let me go ahead and say it. It's probably not. And if that made your stomach flip, you're not alone. Because when you feel that pull, that craving, that connection, or that obsession, you want it to mean something bigger. You want it to be divine. You want to believe that it's spiritual. Because if it's spiritual, it's sacred. And if it's sacred, you don't have to let it go. If it is a soul connection, then maybe the pain is part of the path. But here's the truth. Most of what people call a soulmate connection or twin flames are just trauma bonds in disguise. And deep down, you already know it. You don't check your phone 10 times a day for a soul connection. You don't cry in your car after blocking someone because of spiritual love. You don't ignore red flags and call it destiny unless you've been taught to confuse pain with purpose. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about why this message shows up with so many readings, spiritualists, and prophets. Why readers say you have a soulmate connection, or this is your divine masculine, or this is your twin flame union. Because that message feels really good when you're suffering. It gives the ache meaning. It makes the emotional chaos feel justified. But emotional chaos is not chemistry, and a spiritual label does not fix a dysfunctional bond. Let's say you were with someone who made you feel seen in ways no one else ever had. The conversations were deep, the physical connection was intense, the highs were high, but the lows were unbearable. They ghosted you, then they came back. Then they blamed you, then they pulled you close again. You broke up 5 times, but never really left. And now you're watching these videos that say, this is your person. You're just not in union yet. Soul connections take time to heal. Spirit is still working on him. And all that does is stretch your pain out over months, or even worse, years. Because you're holding on to a narrative that turns your emotional dependency into a spiritual mission. But let's call it what it is. You're not in love, you're addicted. You're addicted to the way that they make you feel. You're addicted to the apology after the tension. You're addicted to the validation that you only feel when they pull you back in. You're addicted to the belief that all this suffering must mean something powerful is unfolding. But what if it doesn't? What if the only thing unfolding is your emotional unraveling? Let me say something that just might sting a little bit, but it will definitely set you free. Soulmate connections bring peace. Trauma bonds bring obsession. So if it keeps you anxious, dysregulated, off balance, questioning your worth, it's not a sacred connection. It is a mirror of your deepest and most darkest wounds, and no amount of divine language will fix that until you face it. Let's go deeper. Have you ever said something like, I know he's not good for me, but I can't let him go? Or I feel like we're supposed to be together no matter what. I've never felt anything like this before. It has to be divine. This has to be my soulmate. But that's not intuition. That is simply a nervous system that was trained to equate intensity with intimacy. Because maybe you grew up in a home where love was earned, where connection was inconsistent, where attention came through survival, not softness. So now you confuse the high of being seen with the pain of not being chosen, and you stay because the roller coaster feels like home. So here's another example. Let's say you were with someone that was toxic, unfaithful, emotionally immature, but when they touched you, you felt alive. When they called, your heart skipped a beat. When they ignored you, you spiraled, but when they came back, it felt euphoric. And when they said, you're my person, I just need time, you believed them. Because that's what a soulmate would say, right? But no, that's what a trauma bond feeds on. It feeds on intermittent reinforcement, hot and cold patterns, emotional whiplash disguised as destiny. That is not True love or divine love, that is emotional gambling. So let's flip the focus. The real reason you keep asking, is this a soulmate connection or is this a trauma bond, is because part of you already knows the truth. You are just hoping that if you spiritualize it enough, you won't have to let it go. You won't have to let them go, because letting them go means facing the deeper question. What part of me is still attracted to this kind of pain? You're not being punished. You're not under attack. You are simply stuck in a pattern that feels like love because it is familiar. And that familiarity, that is the real connection, not the person, just the pattern. You don't need to sever the connection. You need to examine the version of yourself that keeps entertaining it, because that's where your freedom lies. Not in waiting for them to change, not in praying that they wake up, but in choosing to wake yourself up. Say it with me. I'm not chasing destiny through dysfunction. And let me ask you this very real question. Are you drawn to them or addicted to the feeling that they give? If your answer is that you feel worthy when they choose you, that's not a soulmate. That's self-abandonment looking for a savior. If the answer is that you feel sick when they leave but whole when they come back, that is not love. That's simply withdrawal. If the answer is that you feel broken without them but unstable with them, that's not a connection. That is trauma reenactment. You weren't born to suffer your way into a spiritual union. You weren't sent here to be tethered to someone's emotional avoidance. You don't have to bleed just to feel close to the Most High or to God or to universe or whatever you believe. The universe is not teaching you a lesson by tying you to someone who triggers your worst fears. The lesson is you finally realizing that you don't need to stay attached to pain in order to prove your loyalty. Some of you might be thinking, oh, but I've done some cord cutting. I've prayed, I've saged, I've journaled, I've cried, but I still feel them. And let me be honest, you're not feeling them. What you're feeling is you. The part of you that still wants some type of closure, the part of you that wants clarity and wants to know that it mattered. But you don't need their confirmation to validate your experience. And you don't need to stay entangled just because you once cared. You can honor what it was and still choose something healthier. You can love them and still leave, because love alone is not enough. So let's get clear. If it feels like punishment, it's not purpose. If it makes you small, it's not sacred. If it keeps you anxious, it is not alignment. Let the twin flame kingdom spouse rhetoric go. Let that fantasy go. Let that story go. You're not unfinished. So say it with me. I choose peace over pull. I choose healing over history. And I choose myself over obsession. Because if it's real, it won't require pain to prove itself. And if it's not real, no amount of suffering will make it sacred.